Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Through the Pages. Today I'm going to be recapping my favorite books that I read in 2021. I'm going to break it down fiction and nonfiction just because it's hard for me to kind of like compare those two, so I put together like my top 10 in each of those fields. I'm just going to kind of buzz through them too because all of these books have individual videos on the channel, I do believe. So yeah. Starting with the nonfiction first, The Nasty Bits, Anthony Bourdain. I think sometimes we forget of him that he's a writer. You know, we think of him as a TV guy and food, but it's, you know, the TV shows were a conduit for his writing. And then he did the narration. And so obviously he got big off Kitchen Confidential. I think, honestly, this is some of his best writing in there just because I think it's not so much about like the shock and awe of Kitchen Confidential, where this is it's just great food writing. There's also one essay on there that was like particularly of interest to me, where it's about raw foods and mentioned a chef whose name I'm blanking on, who had Charlie Trotter had a gourmet raw foods book, and then initially he started where he's just like ripping it like he would like vegetarian stuff, and then he's like, okay, I see how you could do this. Didn't like that it chagrined all his years of training, but still it was a great read, and I got the cookbook after that. So next up would be The China Study. I actually read 2 books from Colin Campbell this year, and his one that came out this year was The Future of Nutrition, but The China Study will always be the powerhouse. This is still referred to as the largest nutrition study ever conducted. That is sort of the backbone of plant-based diet being sort of undeniably good, and as much as I could reference, I actually hadn't sat down and read it, so it was nice to go through that. And I'm going to give a top 3 of each of these categories at the end. So these aren't ranked, they're just in order by author, alphabetical. So next up would be Drug Use for Grownups, Dr. Carl Hart. This is a must read if you have any sort of interest in drugs. Cleared up a lot of like myths and things, you know, from like meth mouth to there's no drug that you get addicted to off of one use. Like there's a lot of things in there. Obviously he got headlines off of this because he came out as a heroin user and just said, you know, there's a lot of people who use it safely. It's not always just like a messy junky stuff. It's occasionally you have a little white powder, and that's his drug of choice. And so like I think it helps to break down a lot of the stigma on drug use, where like society wise, like we say, like the ones that are legal are okay. Cannabis is now sort of becoming okay. Psilocybin will be the next one to be okay, but it's like those substances were already okay. It's not what some old white man legislator says is what responsible enough to use. Like these drugs can be used responsibly, they can be used irresponsibly, regardless of laws. So this book is phenomenal. His first book, High Price, was kind of the first one that got me interested in drug policy, and also I think one of my best review videos of the year. So a little tip in there. I'll probably link that one later. Stitching Revolution, Cleve Jones. I learned a lot in this book. I literally knew nothing of the AIDS Memorial Quilt, and so I earlier this year had read his other book, When We Rise, and really liked it. And this just kind of detailed not only his life ahead of it, but throughout the process and kind of where it ended up. But you know, times walking around the quilt with the president, and moments where he saw like this connected, and then policy shifted, and knowing that this quilt was the sort of amulet of the movement, and it was effective. And so I think as someone who's kind of looking, you know, things happening in the world, you want to, if there's something you're passionate about or passionate about affecting, you want to do it in a way that matters. And you know, just throwing tweets out into nothingness isn't necessarily it. This physical quilt supersedes any digital campaign we'd see today. And so I loved this story. It was an emotional read for sure. And it's just a heartbreaker that, you know, the government basically just turned a blind eye to it, or said we're too Christian to consider helping gay people, in this like simplistic backwards logic, and then eventually like, oh no, we need to help everyone because they're people. And that had to be fought for is absurd, but incredible telling of it. Not like overly like vindictive. You know, like he's coming from a bit situation where he had, you know, friends dropping like flies around him. He should be fuming with anger, and there's anger in it, but it's not like just railing against the government. It's just a telling of the story, and obviously most people would be upset by reading it. This one right here, The Gut-Immune Connection by Dr. Emmerin Mayer. So this is a follow-up to the Mind-Gut Connection. He had already started this pre-COVID, and then it just became more pertinent. But I really like when gut health books dive deep but have like a specific niche. So he's hit that nail on the head twice. And yeah, just a great gut health book. Probably going to do some sort of like top 10 gut health books video at some point, but in lieu of that, just read both Emmerin Mayer books. Hooked by Michael Moss. This guy wrote, was it Sugar, Salt, Fat? I didn't want to get those. I knew the 3 words, didn't know the order of them. But yeah, so this is just all about processed food industry. Love the cover art on it. How they pretty much have us hypnotized. And yeah, when I say processed foods, it's a food that basically has had an additive brought in or something stripped away. So simple example of stripped away would be like refined sugar. You know, we were designed to eat fruit. You extrapolate just the sugar from it, and that we weren't necessarily built to process that. So then you have all the things in the grocery store where the list of ingredients starts with a couple recognizable foods and then gets into all these weird chemicals. That's processed foods. And they are by design addictive. And so I think that's something we all kind of inherently know, and it's something that, much like with China Study, it's referenced a lot and cited, but then this book really like brought it all together, and it's like, here it is, here's what they've been trying to do, their focus groups are looking at, like all this stuff, and it was a very well done dive into that horrid industry. Popular author right here, This Is Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan. So I love this book. It really just goes deep on 3 different substances. So that would be caffeine, opium, and peyote or mescaline. And so I was stoked because I have a lot of experience with 2 of those, and then one big experience and 2 kind of smaller ones with the other one. I'll let you figure out which 3 those are. But yeah, aside from just beautiful cover art as always, I liked this book for reasons that it just wasn't what I expected. That I feel like sometimes, you know, you're just gonna get preached to about the opium epidemic or that, you know, whatever it might be, and it didn't really fall into those usual tropes. And I really liked that he acknowledged caffeine as being such a drug, and that most people, it's so accepted. It's the most accepted addiction in our culture, and I don't get it. Like I've been there through college, drank a lot of coffee. Ahead of that, tons of energy drinks and just soda all night long, and then kind of got into like green tea and was really doing that like a lot, like cup after cup after cup, and I just stopped. And it's like, this is ridiculous. Like once you get through it, like I wake up energized. Like I wake up ready to go. I woke up not very long ago, and I'm ready to go. And I've just had water. Like it's fun getting high. I love getting high. Like, and so I'd walk around work with green tea and just be like, wow, I can just get high at work. This is cool. Like, and it's allowed. But so he really dove into that substance in the sense of what it's like without it. Then I think that's, as he said, you know, on podcasts, is that's the best way to understand it, given that we're all so steeped in it, like a fish learning to understand water by being taken out of it. And so that was probably my second favorite book from him. How to Change Your Mind would definitely be number 1. This book right here, Brain Maker, by Dr. David Perlmutter. So what I liked about this is that it was kind of a different vantage point on nutrition than I'm used to. He is very much not a plant-based guy, though I guess I shouldn't say it that way. He's not vegan, for sure, but still pushes like a lot of the fish and the grass-fed meat and dairy and things like that. But kind of recognizes, you know, like you gotta have a lot of plants on your plate. Like there's no way around that. And that was kind of interesting to hear, that it's not like I'm just reading like the vegan version of gut health, that like even those who still would describe themselves up and down as carnivores, and he's even very much like a keto guy, that plants are the foundation. No, you can't chagrin them. And so I really like this, learned a lot in it, not just on the like the meat, non-meat thing, but just like his perspective on gut health and the science that he studies. So I really enjoyed this. I don't know if I'll read more from him, but I think I should. Like, there's a book coming up here shortly with an author who reads from people who think differently than him very firmly, and that's something that really resonated with me. More on that here in about 1 minute. So this one, recent review, Becoming Abolitionist by Derica Purnell. As always, I want to show you the beautiful cover art. But yeah, so I think a lot of us know in the discussion of policing, basically the nexus of that argument is reform or abolish. And so that is both for our existing police forces, prison system, like this sort of stuff. And so I think it's pretty easy to see the reformist perspective, but I really liked her take on the abolitionist, that it is such a systemic thing. It's not just a reworking of the budget. Because I've read that before, and not to rehash the whole review of this book here, but like, I think sometimes you could say like we could simply abolish without making huge change. It's not that big, but she's like, no, we need socialism. We need UBI. And I really liked it. So like it felt like she like swung a big hammer with this one. And it's honestly, if you don't lean for we should do reforms, which we've tried and don't work, and a lot of the policies that people pushed, like we should have these in place, this would have helped George Floyd, like they were already in place, the cops just don't do them. So when we look at abolition, both for prison and police, I think we need to look a little bit bigger, and so she really had a wide scope with this book, and I loved it. Final book, Why You Should Be a Socialist, Nathan Robinson. Probably my favorite book on socialism I've read, and that not to say that it's a huge library behind me here, but yeah, learned a lot in it. Really liked his breakdown of the like political characteristics, from like liberal to like authoritarian communism to like, he's like, all these things are very distinct, and as you kind of break through them, you see, okay, I know which ones I appeal to. Obviously it's slanted a little bit, but I did like that he referenced so many books from different people. Like his library would look like a political maniac. Like he had books from like Ben Shapiro and like the most right-wingy people to lefties to like centrist, and so like he would read them to understand their talking points and where they're coming from to better assert how he needs to move forward with his line of thinking. And I really enjoyed that. He also runs a magazine called Current Affairs. But yeah, great book on socialism. I would say my top 3 in here would be, I had it all picked out, you guys. Number 1 would be Drug Use for Grownups by Dr. Callhart. This is Your Mind on Plants and Becoming Abolitionist 2 and 3. Probably 2, 3. I can't go through the process of ranking all these books. Like they're so different. It's so tough to do that. Honorable mention though, When We Rise by Cleve Jones. Already had one of his on there, and not that that's like the rules of this video here, but incredible book. Honestly, both of those are very good. I just feel like I learned a little bit more history from the other one, and that kind of put it over the edge. But this also felt like a more practical thing to read on like how I could become more effective in my own community. Into the fiction, because I don't want this book or this video to be an hour long. Aleph by Paulo Coelho, one of my favorite books from him, and I'm looking at a row of like 16 of his books or something right now. I like that it has what I believe to be an autobiographical element to it, but then totes the line of mysticism without going full into it. It basically takes place on like a train ride on the Trans-Siberian Railway. I think that's the name of it, but yeah, long train ride. Very, very good. probably like if someone's like, I want to get into Paulo Coelho, I'd probably recommend 3 books. It'd be like that, The Alchemist, and probably Hippie, honestly, or Fifth Mountain. Okay, I digress. Our Shimmering Skies, Trent Dalton, probably the funnest book I read all year, and it was a year where we needed some fun reads. So this is his second book. Both of them have been home runs in my opinion. This is basically just like a treasure hunt. It's awesome. It's just around Australia, and I love his writing style. It feels like simple but not simplistic. I don't know if that makes sense at all. Like, it doesn't feel like dumbed down, but it feels like very accessible. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thickie here. Don't be discouraged. It's actually tons of white space in here. But Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr, one of my favorite books I read all year. And I'll be honest with you, I started it and I was like 50 pages in, or maybe 30 pages in, and thinking like, I don't know about this. Like, and so stick with books by trusted author. Like, I trust this man. He could write pretty much anything for his next book as the subject, and I'm gonna read it. Like, I'm already gonna read his other ones. I think he's got like a memoir and maybe 2 short story collections I haven't read. All right, recent review, 3 Body Problem by Cai-Zhen Liu. This was a doozy of a sci-fi read. Strong recommend for my sister's boyfriend Ryan. And yeah, I will be reading the next 2 in this series for sure. Probably within 2022. So keep an eye out for those. All right, we've got A Children's Bible by Linda Millett. This was one of the funniest books I read all year. And I don't think she would peg it, or like, it doesn't belong in the humor section, but like it just has a lot of wit in it, and that I really appreciate. It was just some very intelligent children, sharp lines in it, and yeah, kind of a good tale on sort of end of the world. Reminds me sort of Severance by Ling Ma in that way, that it's pertinent, but also it has like enough hilarity where it's not just like, world's pretty fucked, huh? Like it's not like pandering in that way. It's just great. I've recommended that book a lot. Absolutely loved this book. Loved this story. Loved the TV show at the same time. This is my first Lillian Moriarty read, 9 Perfect Strangers, about psychedelic therapy, or I would say sort of just non-traditional forms of therapy coupled with traditional therapy. But yeah, loved it. Very good handling of a delicate subject, I will say. Probably my favorite fiction book read all year, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. And this was gifted to me at Christmas 2020. And when he dropped it off, he said, "Here you go, let's read it." And I was just like, Jared, that's a thick gift. Like, I appreciate it. But and so like, I sidestepped it for a little while, and then when I went in, I was like, oh, he knew this, 600 pages of gold. So yeah, I've been like wanting to recommend this book to people. Like, it's so good. Only my second Murakami read, but fucking phenomenal. Real Life by Brandon Taylor. This one about had me in tears on an airplane ride back from California. Just incredible story, such depth to it. I read Filthy Animals by him this year as well. I really liked the novel form, and from following his Twitter, sounds like he's got another novel in the chamber. But this was just incredible. It wasn't at all what I expected, which I guess doesn't really say anything about it. But like, yeah, I really resonated with that character. A classic to finish it off. Revolutionary Road by Richard Yates. So I'd seen the movie 4 times probably, and the book takes it further, understand so much more about it, understand a little bit more of like that age of anxiety, and yeah, to see like some of the remarks on this book by authors that are like top tier, like respected and classics, like it's an incredible book, almost like a must read if you're like diving into books. This is just incredible. So top ones out of here. number one, Wind Up Bird Chronicle, Cloud Cuckoo Land, and All Our Shimmering Skies. Favorite novels of the year right here. Yeah, just incredible. Honorable mention, About Grace by Anthony Doerr. Again, just read 2 incredible books by him within this year, and he's just great. So to finish this off, I've had a comment saying like, show us your book collection here. Won't go too slow on it and dive into everything, but I'm just going to show you the space behind me. Thank you for rocking with my channel here. So, got one little case over here, and let's see what else we can get into. So, got the cubes here, little stacks on top, trying to figure out what I'm doing next. Little piece of art that I'm liking. That's a fun one, still set up from the holidays. And then I got one little like tall rack over here. So this has a lot of like cookbooks and like art books, but then 2 rows of novels. So yeah, hope you had some good reads in 2022. Leave a comment. What was your favorite book, or you can even split it like I did, favorite nonfiction and fiction book that you read in 2020?